All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about William Golding's classic, Lord of the Flies. The premise seems simple enough, right? A bunch of schoolboys get stranded on a tropical island. But what unfolds is one of the most chilling deep dives into the dark corners of human nature ever written.
You know, it's kind of weird, but we're going to start at the very end of the story. This single, gut-wrenching sentence from the novel's final moments says it all. It captures the heartbreak, the horror, and the awful truth the boys discover about themselves. It perfectly sets the stage for the journey we're about to explore.
So, this is the big question Golding is asking us. If you strip away all the rules, all the parents, all the teachers, what's left of us? Is our civilized behavior just a thin coat of paint? Something that cracks the second things get tough? That's the terrifying experiment at the heart of this book.
So how are we going to tackle this? Simple. First, we'll look at why Golding wrote this book in the first place. Then, we'll meet the main players in this battle of order versus chaos. We'll track how their little society falls apart, decode some really powerful symbols, and finally, we'll face that staggering conclusion.
You have to wonder, where does a story this bleak even come from? Well, it wasn't just some idea Golding dreamed up. For him, this was personal. It was a direct response to the absolute horror he saw in the real world. Think about this for a second. Golding was in the Royal Navy for 6 years during World War II. He was there on D-Day, seeing humanity at its absolute worst. It changed him. He famously said that he believed humanity produces evil as a bee produces honey. Wow. So this island, this story, it became his laboratory to explore that very idea.
And this quote, man, it just hits you. This is his whole point. He wasn't saying, those guys over there are evil. He was saying, hey, look in the mirror. The war showed him that the potential for true savagery isn't some outside force. It's in every single one of us, just waiting for the rules to disappear.
Okay, so with that dark background in mind, let's get to the island and meet our cast of characters. And trust me, these aren't just kids. They're more like, they're big ideas walking around in school shorts.
So you can basically see the whole island splitting into 2 camps. You've got Team Ralph over here, who's all about democracy and getting rescued, with the super smart Piggy as his right-hand man. And then there's Team Jack, who's tapping into something much more primal. And every single boy on that island has to pick a side. There's no middle ground.
Let's really break this down. It's Ralph versus Jack, and they could not be more different. Ralph is a voice of civilization. He wants meetings, he wants rules, and most of all, he wants to keep that signal fire going. Jack, he couldn't care less about the fire. He's all about the thrill of the hunt, the feel of power, that raw primal instinct for control. This is the battle for the soul of their new world.
But it's not just about them. You've got Piggy, the brains of the operation, the voice of pure logic. You've got Simon, this quiet, thoughtful kid who seems to understand things on a deeper level. And then there's Roger. Oh man, Roger is the quiet one who, without any adults around, becomes the embodiment of pure sadism. He's terrifying. So you put all these pieces on the board, and it feels like a ticking time bomb, right? The collapse doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow burn, a step-by-step descent into total madness. And it all starts with fear. So how does it all fall apart? It starts with a whisper. The little kids start talking about a beastie in the woods. And Jack, being smart, he jumps on this. He uses that fear to gain power. But the real point of no return? It's when the hunters let the signal fire go out so they can kill a pig. And a ship, a real ship, sails right by them. Their ticket home is gone. After that, that's it. Jack breaks away and starts his own tribe, built on fear and bloodlust.
And while everyone's losing their minds looking for a monster, Simon has this incredible moment of clarity. He's the only one who gets it. He realizes, hey, what if the monster we're so afraid of isn't out there in the trees? What if it's us?
And what does he get for figuring this out? He gets murdered. Brutally. The boys are so whipped up into a hunting frenzy they think he's the beast and they kill him. Not long after, Piggy, the last voice of civilization, is also killed. And just like that, goodness and logic are literally snuffed out on the island for good.
Now, Golding is an absolute genius with symbolism. He uses these simple objects as, well, it's like a meter that shows you exactly how far they've fallen into savagery. You can track their whole collapse just by watching what happens to a few key things.
First up, the conch shell. From day one, it's their symbol of order. It's democracy in their hands. If you hold it, you get to speak. Simple. So later in the story, when that conch gets smashed into a million tiny white pieces, yeah, that's not just a broken shell. That is the end of rules, the end of their society. Game over.
Then you've got Piggy's glasses. They're literally the key to their survival. They represent science, intellect, the power to make fire, which means hope and rescue. And think about this. Jack's tribe doesn't figure out how to make their own fire. They just use brute force to steal the glasses. That tells you everything, doesn't it? Savagery has replaced smarts.
And of course, we have to talk about the Lord of the Flies itself. It's a pig's head that Jack's hunters stick on a spear. It's disgusting. And it's this awful monument to their own brutality. It even talks to Simon, and it confirms his worst fear. It basically says, "You silly little boy, you can't hunt and kill me. I'm part of you." Chilling stuff. All of this, it builds to one of the most devastating and deeply ironic endings in all of literature. The boys are saved, but, well, let's just say it is anything but a happy ending. So get this, for the ultimate bitter irony. All that time Ralph spent carefully tending a rational, controlled signal fire, it did nothing. What finally gets them rescued? An out-of-control wildfire that Jack's tribe starts to hunt and kill Ralph. Their single most savage, murderous act is the very thing that saves them. It's an absolutely brutal punchline. And who rescues them? A naval officer. An adult from a world that's in the middle of its own massive, destructive war. He scolds the boys for not behaving like proper British lads, completely missing the fact that their savage little island is just a miniature version of the civilized adult world he came from. It makes you ask, who's really civilized here?
Man, that is a bleak, bleak outlook on humanity. But what if Golding was wrong? What if this horrible descent into savagery isn't the only way it could have gone? Turns out, a real-life event happened that gives us a completely different story.
Check this out. In 1965, 6 Tongan boys were shipwrecked on an island and were stranded for 15 months. But instead of turning on each other, they worked together. They built a community, set up shifts, tended a garden, and they kept a fire going the entire time. Their days started and ended with song and prayer. It's an incredible true story of human cooperation and resilience.
So that leaves us with the big one. Is Golding's beast, that darkness he saw, an inescapable part of who we are? Or, as the story of those Tongan boys suggests, is it something we can choose to overcome? Is the real story of humanity not about the darkness inside us, but about the choice we make every single day to work together and be better? I guess that's a question